Welcome to another episode of the Tough Stuff Podcast.
Be sure to like, love, share, or subscribe wherever you may be watching or listening, because we believe God wants to bring encouragement and hope through these stories. What's going on, Tough Stuff? Glad to be here. Episode 13. Man, I've just been blown away at you guys' love for this podcast. The fact that people get up on Friday mornings and there's watches. But man, I'm mostly excited about today. I'm excited today because I am with none other than Ronald Olivier. He is well known. If you Google his name, it says American author, and he's got a book that he's written 27 Summers. Amazing book. But I know Ronald as just stepping into the church, seeing the glory of God all over, and him just getting to share his story. But man, thanks for coming and hang out with us today. Man, thanks for being with us. Man, I'm excited about this. I'm excited about what God's done in your life. The story, honestly, is Ronald. He, from a young age, ended up in incarceration, did 27 summers in Angola and throughout the state. And man, God's done a lot through his life. So we're going to get into that. So today, what's going on, Ron? How you doing today, man?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, man.
Awesome, man.
I'm excited to have you, bro. We, man, whenever we first started this podcast, man, you were one of the first people that were on my heart just because your story is so impactful. And not even that, man, even beyond your story. Like if you know Ronald, if you got to see, bro, the glory of God's all on your face, man. You can just, you know, I think about the disciples that says that people could tell that they'd been with Jesus. Yes, and man, you embody that. You glow, bro. You glow.
Thank you, man.
And not even get into your story, man. But man, it's awesome. So I'm excited you're here. One of the things that really blessed me is, you know, we've been trying to make this thing happen. And you know, we try to put down a couple dates, and you're like, man, I got to be there with my family, bro. And that blessed me, man.
Yes, sir.
Just to see that your priorities are where they're at and you're a family man. But let's get into it, man. Let's get into it, bro.
Sir.
So, man, you were born New Orleans, right?
New Orleans, Louisiana.
Yeah, take us there, bro. You were born, your mom and your dad, y'all were close. You were close with your dad. Tell us about it. And what it was like to be young Ron.
And so I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. I come up in a real poverty-stricken area in New Orleans. I can remember like yesterday when my mother moved from out of the 7th ward to the 8th ward.
Yeah.
And I can remember the nice neighborhood we was in. I still can see myself feeding the birds off the porch.
Yeah, moving on up.
Yes, and it was really nice. And my father lived in New Orleans East.
All right.
With his wife. So I came from a broken home. My father was constantly in my life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I spent weekends with him on summers and some home holidays.
Yeah.
He was always there, a part of my life. And two major things that kind of shift me into the direction that I went into the street. One, my father was leaving to move to Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I was so heartbroken. I was very hurt. That hurt turned into anger. And
how old were you at that point?
I was about 15, 14,
yeah,
15.
It's such a pivotal time, too, man.
And my dad was everything to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, this is my hero.
That's heartbreaking.
This is who I wanted to be like.
Yeah.
You know, and when he leaves, man, I felt abandoned. You know, and then there was another big shift that took place in my life about the late 1980s is when the crack epidemic took place, and my neighborhood completely shifted. Yeah. You know, so with a lot of drugs comes a lot of violence. And so I was constantly seeing people get shot at a young age, constantly seeing things like, you know, hearing sirens. Yeah. And so I became accustomed to that. Yeah. And consequently, man, got off into the streets, and the streets began to father me. I got into all type of things in the street.
Man, when you said they fathered you, bro, that resonated with me. You know, I just think about my own story. And I thought about, you know, we were talking about our kids and, you know, you and your little boy a little while ago. And I think I guess I neglect to figure out, like, you know, your dad was in your life up until 15 years old. But then even him leaving at that point still left such a hole as far as, you know, your father's where you get your identity, your value, your worth, you know, and then you saying the streets fathered me. I just think about, you know, I think I've shared this on here before. Man, when I was in New Orleans, you know, I found this Jamaican dude named Sean, and he was a crack dealer, whatever, had girls, they was running all this stuff. But really, he was like a father figure to me, man. And just that, man, the importance of being a father.
Right. And so if somebody will follow us.
Yeah.
No matter where we at. And, you know, somebody's going to be that influence in our life. And so consequently, you know, I got into a lot of trouble in the streets. I can remember going to the juvenile bureau quite a few times. My mother come and sign me out, or getting some adult to come sign me out.
Yeah.
And so everything led up to this point, and me having a confrontation with a guy. And I think it was about a month or two later, he sees me alone. In fact, to be blunt about it, we jumped him. We had a fight.
Yeah.
And me and a couple of my own boys, we jumped him. And so the next time he see me,
You're already ready.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm outnumbered now. He's with about 6 guys, and I'm just with 2 other guys.
Yeah.
And so, but I had a gun on me. You know, I was very accustomed to carrying guns because I was dealing drugs then.
No, for sure.
And it was very dangerous. That was a very dangerous lifestyle because there was a shift in the drug game because they got guys who their trade is to rob the drug dealers.
Yeah.
And so there was a point in time where a lot of the guys who were robbing drug dealers was getting killed because they were forgetting all the people that they robbed and end up pumping gas next to them. And you know, the
I
guys
had some Jack Boy days. You looking at me and I'm like, man, I hope I'm getting like almost intimidated. You just talking about the Jack Boys.
and so you had to protect yourself not only from the police, you know, but from the Jack Boys.
Yeah.
And so it got to a point where they was getting killed a lot. And so instead of them changing their profession, they decided to kill everyone who they robbed.
Yeah.
And so whether you give them the product or not, they were going to kill you. And so that meant you really had to arm yourself. So I always had a gun.
Yeah.
You know, it was always like in survival mode, you know, because they had a lot of my friends was not making it out of their team.
Yeah.
I went to so many funerals.
Yeah.
You know, and I just knew I was next. And so here it is. I had a gun on me this day, and so I felt, man, I wasn't outnumbered.
Still, yeah.
You know, you think I'm outnumbered, but I'm not. And so one thing led to another. They followed us. One guy tried to snatch me off the bus. I turned around while I was still on the RTA bus and started shooting.
Yeah.
And man, as a result of that, two guys was in a pool of blood. One died and one survived.
Wow.
The guy that died, I didn't know.
Yeah.
He was 14 years old. Never saw him in my life, but he was with the other guy who I had the confrontation with.
Yeah, and you're 16 at this point.
I'm 16 at this time. And the guy who I had the confrontation with who survived, I had shot him 4 times.
Wow.
And the one who died had got shot twice.
Wow.
And so, man, from that took my life into a tailspin right there.
No, that changed trajectory for sure.
Everything changed. Yeah. And so there I am 2 days later and at the juvenile bureau. You know, I was accustomed to mama come and sign me. I thought mama was going to be able to sign me.
So them 2 days, you just went back to the house,
ducked
off?
Back. I went like on a run.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, man.
You still had no clue what happened, results of...
I had saw it on the news that same night that it happened.
Oh, really?
I
Same
actually
night.
saw it on the news. So I was like on the run. And then got in touch with a few people. And I really felt like I was in the right because they followed me, tried to, you know, I felt it was self-defense.
It's almost self-defense.
And so I told my story to my sister's dad, who had a lot of family in the NOPD, you know, and he was like, man, if that happened, you need to turn yourself in, man.
Yeah.
You're making it look like, you know, and so as a result of that, on the 27th, 2 days later, I had turned myself in.
Wow.
Yeah. And man, like I said, went to the juvenile bureau.
Yeah.
Thinking mom gonna sign me out. And after going to court quite a few times for the juvenile court, they decided to charge me as an adult. So I went from facing like juvenile life,
Which would have been 2 years.
right, to the age of 21.
Oh, 21.
Yeah.
All right. But still not.
Right.
Yeah.
And man, I remember being in the juvenile facility and guys coming back with juvenile life. I'm like, man, how you gonna do that? I couldn't even fathom that.
Yeah.
And so here it is, I get transferred to the adults courts and get charged as adults. Now I was rebooked on first degree murder. Now I'm facing the death penalty. I went from facing juvenile life to facing.
Do you remember what it was that maybe caused them to decide to try you as an adult? Was it just the heat of things at that time in New Orleans? They're trying to make an example of people.
And really, it came when you do the statistics back then. Most young black guys were being charged as adults as opposed to young white guys.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and so they would let them go through the juvenile courts.
Yeah.
But you know,
Dude, I couldn't imagine you turned yourself in. You remember?
Right.
Do you remember what that feeling was like?
yes, man, it was very scary.
I turned myself in for a DWI that I faked being my brother,
Okay.
and they booked me on and everything, and I felt so bad. And I remember how scared I was
Yes.
to go turn myself in on that, bro.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you went and turned yourself in on this.
And so,
you know?
but still in my juvenile mind, I'm thinking, man, I'm gonna be okay. 'Cause
Yeah.
I was like in the right. I'm thinking I was very optimistic of this whole thing.
I was reading in the book, bro, and and dude, honestly, even this conversation, bro, it's been almost like triggering for me. Just thinking about, that feeling it was to be on the streets where you're always looking over your back. You
Yes.
never know what today is going to bring.
Yes.
You never know. You never at peace. There are never no peace at all.
Never peace.
But then you were talking about in the book just that lifestyle of just in and out of jail. Getting shot, almost a badge of honor. It's almost like part of you growing up like, man, I wouldn't mind getting shot in the leg or something just to have a story to tell.
Right.
Or, I couldn't wait to just get in jail, get out so I can tell people, because it almost leveled you up in people's eyes, man. So here you are, turning yourself back in juvenile court. You think things are going to go as usual, and things got flipped.
Yeah, and so I go into the adult coach and I'm facing the death penalty. And so everything was really a joke to me up until the point of the trial while the jury was deliberating. That's where everything got real to me.
Wow.
Everything got real. And of course, I had a court-appointed attorney, a public
defender.
Public pretender.
Yeah.
He pretended to defend me. And so here it is. Man, I never forget. It's about 12 midnight, 1 in the morning. The jury is deliberating. They put me in a holding tank on the docks, and
these dudes are deciding your life.
Right. And so here it is. I never forget. The guard brings me. I can still hear his footsteps, and I can still hear the keys turn when he slammed the door and turned the key, and his footsteps faded off into the back. I'm on the docks alone.
You in New Orleans on Broad?
I'm on, yes.
Yeah.
And so, it's noisy going to court because there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
But this 1 o'clock in the morning, nobody's there.
Yeah.
But me. They leave me there, and I start to think, okay, 12 people who really don't know me are making a decision on whether I live or die.
At 16.
At 16. By this time, I'm 17.
17, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, man. But also this came to my mind. I remember my mother. I had a praying mother.
Really? So you grew up in somewhat in church?
Oh,
or at
yes.
least
Always had basic understanding of God, but never really had that relationship,
Yeah. Of course.
You didn't have a choice on whether you was going to church in our house.
Oh, yeah. You was going.
So my mother was Catholic. My dad was Baptist.
Yeah.
So wherever I was, we was going to church somewhere.
Yeah.
And so always had that understanding.
You catching both sides of the pendulum. Last week we had my boy Chris on here. I think his mother was Catholic and his dad was Baptist.
Yeah.
You're getting the whole thing.
Right. And so always had this kind of respect for God. Even if we had loud music in the car, was cussing, we get by church, we turn it down. We see a church, we make the sign of the cross.
Yeah.
Hold up, man.
It's like street reverence.
Yeah, it's insane. like God is not, in the next block. He's just at the church. Yeah. That was my understanding of it. And so here it is, man, my mother told me years prior to me getting in trouble, she said, baby, if you ever in trouble that I can't get you out, you call on Jesus. Yeah. So I hear that so loud in my ears. Yeah. And this holding tank. Nothing but God bringing that back to my memories and magnifying that, man. And so I got on my knees at that moment and I began to cry out to God in that holding tank. There was no one to lead me in a sinner's prayer or anything. And I had a very simple prayer, I made a deal with God. Yeah. I said, don't make deal with God. I made a deal with him. Yeah. And so my prayer was this, Lord, if you don't let them kill me, I promise you I'll serve you the rest of my life. Wow. And for the first time in my life, I experienced the peace of God. At that point, 17 years old, man. I didn't know what it was. Yeah. But there was just this inward resolve that said, you're going to be all right. Yeah. You okay. Yeah. And man, I remember they're still crying, but still feeling like I was going to be all right. I'm getting the goosebumps thinking about it, man. I know that feeling. And it's like, you can't express. And honestly, I don't know. I just connected these two in my mind. It's one of those feelings kind of like whenever I see my little girl do something that is just like ridiculously amazing or cute or whatever it might be, but it's like this bubble up of overflowing emotion. I remember feeling that, when God kind of hit me with that peace for the first time, bro. Yes, sir. It's game changer. Yeah, it's a game changer. And so I comes back out. The jury comes back with a guilty verdict of the lesser offense, which was the responsibility, second-degree murder. Yeah. And second-degree murder, what I didn't know, carried a mandatory life sentence without benefits of parole or probation. In layman's terms, I mean you die in prison. Yeah. So you sitting in the courtroom, they call you back in, jury comes back in, and that's the way they gave it to you. Right. And so I was it was mixed feelings because I'm still feeling optimistic that, especially with that feeling that came over, that peace, that, hey, they coming back with not guilty or I'm going home today. Yeah. And so I was relieved on one end that I knew I wasn't going to die. It wasn't first degree murder. I knew that much. Yeah. But on the other end, I felt like, man, even though I didn't know that second degree murder carried a life sentence. Yeah. I didn't know that either. You should have changed that deal you made with God. Let me go back. If you get me out. Right. And I believe this with all my heart of hearts. Because the prayer was so sincere. Yeah. That if I would have prayed that, he would have heard that. Yeah. Yeah. But I prayed, I believe, what I really needed to pray. No, for sure. Yeah. And man, that changed my life from that moment on. And so they come back with this guilty verdict. I like to say it like this: in that holding tank, I really got 2 life sentences. Yeah. The state gave me a life sentence with no benefits, and God gave me a life sentence with so many benefits that he encouraged us in his word not to forget them. Yeah, not to preach. Yeah. And it was like they threw down their life sentence and God threw down his life sentence. And God's life sentence swallowed up their life sentence. Yeah. That's why I'm sitting here. Yeah, that's it, bro. That's why I'm sitting here. So here you are, man, 17-year-old boy, but have your first personal encounter with Jesus Christ, with God, which changes everything. Yet you still got this sentence that they've given you, man, and it's just hanging over your head. Yes, sir. And from there, you didn't get to go home. No, you went straight to a bus, or what did that look like? Well, I went back to the dorm, and for a while there. Were you in New Orleans, the Tower of Detention or whatever? No, I was at OPP on C4. Yeah, on the open flat. All right. And I went back there. Matter of fact, when I went there, because it was a tier designed for juveniles charged as adults, so they didn't just mix us with the adults.
Yeah.
You know, we all played basketball together. You know, but we didn't sleep in the same.
Yeah.
You know, and so those guys was up waiting on me. You know, they just thinking I'm going home. When I come back, I'm smiling.
Yeah.
You know, and when I tell them I got found guilty, they're like, man, he playing, man.
Yeah.
You know. And so everything just was surreal to me. I felt like I was dreaming. But the next morning they knew, because I cried in my bed. I stayed in my bed most of the day.
Yeah.
But later, by the time I was 18, they hadn't sentenced me. I had to go back to get sentenced, and shortly thereafter, they shipped me upstate to Hunt's Correctional Center, which is the reception center where they said anybody that's convicted of a crime, and then that's like the little area where they disperse them to where they going to.
Yeah.
Right. And so by me having a life sentence, everybody knew you going in Angola. That's where life is go. You know, and so I can remember being there in a cell alone. And that's where God really had me to look at myself.
Yeah.
You know, I saw my whole life go before me like a movie screen, you know. And he was showing me where that was him right there saving me, and where he was trying to get my attention, you know. To stop me from getting there.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Look, that was me there. Yeah,
I know that
me.
feeling,
that was
man.
me, and I'm like, wow, God, you always been there.
Yeah.
You know, you just didn't meet me in that holding tank when the jury was deliberating. You been there.
Yeah. That's one of them things, man. That's what like. And I don't know, I always go back and forth, man. God's always trying to build trust with us. It's not like and I feel like God's so much in people's lives more than they know. And then all of a sudden it's like he opens your eyes and you're like, and that's why you have trust for him. Because you start to realize he has been here the whole time, man. And dude, but that's got to be such a hard tandem of here I am, have just finally found the biggest joy of my life, the biggest peace of my life.
Yes.
Yet I've also been given the most, for lack of better terms, damning sentence ever. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So that's got to be a tough rope to walk on, man.
And so here it is. I find myself on a road later to Angola, Louisiana State Penitentiary. I never forget, on the Long Snake Road right off of 61. This 20-mile road that leads to Angola. I'm on the bus and I'm thinking about, all the stories I heard about Angola. Angola was labeled the bloodiest prison in the nation. Was very brutal. And then I'm 18 years old. I look like I'm about 11. Didn't even have a string of hair on my face. I'm 131 pounds. I was 5'11".
Yeah.
And so...
God, they called you Ron Slim for a reason, huh?
Yeah, I was really slim. And so here I am on this road, and I'm thinking, man, about how they prey upon the young in the prison, sexually assault them.
Yeah.
And so I made a decision on the road to Angola. I'm like, man, I'm going into this prison a man, and I'm gonna leave a man I'm walking out, or they carry me out in the box.
Yeah.
And so I just made that decision there, and so I had that kind of chip on my shoulder when I went into the prison. I'm challenging anything that I thought may have been, even if I was
feel
wrong.
Like everybody's out there, man.
And so that was my life. But amazingly, man, God is always up to something. He has a plan.
Yeah.
And he placed me around people that was willing to help me and not hurt me.
Which don't happen.
And so in the midst of this, man, he had a remnant.
Yeah.
He had his
That's
people
good,
there.
man.
I'm
A remnant.
talking about pastors.
I like that word, man.
They had, men of God. He just, because even though I believe in that holding tank, that was my born again experience. The only evidence I had of that was that I would do some of the same things. I still talk the same way. I had to fill them out, but I felt bad about it.
Yeah, you had that conviction.
Yeah, I was being convicted. That's the only evidence that something really happened.
Yeah,
You know?
that's why like conviction is a blessing, man.
Yeah.
Conviction is a reassurance that the Holy Spirit is living inside of you.
And so I couldn't understand. I had nobody to disciple me and let me know what was going on. You know, I didn't know how important it was to read the Bible, to get in the Word and all this. And so he sent me around these guys who was beginning to disciple me.
Yeah.
Begin to teach me about, man, how important it is to have a prayer life, man.
So did you just like end up in that line, or did you start going to church once you got there and they kind of moved you around?
I kind of ended up in a place where I think my first sanctuary became the law library. Mm-hmm. Because I was like, man, I'm not gonna die here.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Man, I'm
God's
coming up
you too
out
much.
here. Yeah. I was always optimistic.
Yeah.
About me getting out.
Yeah.
I always had that inward resolve that, man, I'm not gonna die here, even though all the circumstances
you're going to.
Right. And when people at that time, when you go to Angola, you don't leave.
Yeah.
That's what they do. They go there and die. They got a place, a cemetery named Point Lookout. That's where most guys go. If family can't afford to bury them and come get their bodies, the inmates bury it.
Wow.
And so Point Lookout began to swell. It was one little area till I think it's about 4 or 5 right now.
Taking over space.
Yes, you know, and so
we're sitting there, being there, bro. That's got to be such a sobering, like, it's almost like, hey, look, there's your future out here. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. And so that's where I spent all my time, and I met a guy there who was inmate counselor, Tony Stanislaw Roberts. And he had a computer there. I never ever used a computer.
Yeah.
And so he began to teach me about the law. I learned how to shepherdize and go in cases and bring the key case to that, and you know, and really read the law and interpret it. Yeah. And he taught me all that, but he was a minister in church too. You know. He made me go to church. You know?
Hey, you go all the way to Angola. Somebody's still making you go to church.
Man, yeah. And so, man, it was amazing how God was using not just him. It was so many guys, man. Yeah. That just was pointing me in the right direction. Even from one when I was at Hunts before I got to Angola, God told me about Angola, who had already been there. And he told me, man, if you just go up there and stay away from these several things, you're going to be okay. And graduate from everything you can graduate from. And so I started getting a lot of programs, got in school, got in GED school, wound up getting my GED. And then, man, finally, after that, got into the Bible college. So
New Orleans Baptist, right?
Yes, New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. And so here it is. They established an extension center in Angola. Professors come from the outside and do lectures just like any other college. And you actually have a graduation with robes and caps.
Really?
And, it was, you wouldn't even believe you was in prison hiders when the faculties come and they do their thing, the ceremony and all that. And after about 4 years, I received a bachelor's degree in Christian ministry.
How long had you been in at that point? What year did you graduate?
I graduated in 2005. I went in 1999.
All right.
Yeah, and I graduated at 2005.
About 6 years.
Yeah, about 6 years. That. And so...
but in 6 years, you've been grinding. You got on the ground, hit the ground running.
And so the college works like, you know, you can't just get what class you want because you're in prison, you know. Yeah. And so there's a cycle. And so I might be in and finish a whole lot of classes, but some classes I need, I got to wait till that cycle come back around. It might be, you know, 3-4 months, 6 months, you know, something like that, you know. But, man, it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, I bet, man.
You know, amazing journey. And I believe that it broke in my life. Prior to that, I always started something but didn't finish it. But that broke that in my
that
life.
cycle.
That cycle right there.
To see just God's grace on him, man. I got a friend that he just got locked up and he's looking at a long time, man. And we were just talking about the other day of like, man, God had to protect him from himself. Like he knew if he was out here that he wasn't going to get what God was trying to get him to get. Mm-hmm. And here it is, man. God sat you down, Ronald, and said, man, I got more for you than this.
Same thing.
And put his arms around you in a lack of better terms.
Yes.
Which is not no arms nobody else wants around him, but he knew what he was doing.
Yes. And so he began to lead me and guide me. So after graduation, you have an opportunity to become what is called an inmate minister. That's your job. They give you an area, and that's your responsibility to make rounds and you know, and just serve those people spiritually.
Because there's multiple churches, right?
Right. There's several churches and there's multiple camps. Mm-hmm. So Angola is like 18,000 acres. Yeah. There's about 6 different camps miles apart on those 18,000 acres. And so the Bible college began to produce so many ministers that we was actually piling up on each other. Yeah. And so God gave the former warden Burl Kane what I believe was not a good idea, but a God idea to send out missionaries from prison. So,
I read that in the book and I was like, missionary. I had to like keep on reading. I'm like, did he just get like sent somewhere else, or was he like really getting sent out as a missionary? Right. You'd always being optimistic, you know what I'm saying? You're just getting put somewhere else. You're like, I'm going on a mission.
Right. And so it was actually a missionary program where they send you out the prison to other prisons in Louisiana. You know,
which Warden Kane's heart, man, just getting to see him, you know, his relationship with Healing Place when he was there, bro. Let us, Brother Jim, come in, Brother Jim Rents, and do whatever he wanted to do.
In fact, look, one time, and it was 2015, my first time at Healing Place Church, I had a life sentence. Yeah. You know, Jim Semler came and they did a concert with their choir, and he asked the warden, could I come? And the warden agreed. And man, that blew my mind.
Really, I bet.
Yeah, and they showed my story there that Jim Semler, Brooklyn Tabernacle, captured and interviewed me when I was in prison. And then he called me on the stage and gave me the mic. Yeah. And I began to share there at Healing Place. That's my first experience.
Really? 2015?
In 2015.
Wow.
Yes. And so it's amazing just how God circled me right back here. And I'm here. But man, God placed in my heart to go on a mission, on a mission field. Yeah. Which was a hard decision because Angola.
But you are going to live somewhere else. Yeah.
Another prison. In fact, it's Cottonport. I went to Avoyas Correctional Centers in Avoyas Parish. And man, that was a very difficult decision to make. Yeah.
Because you had such a safety net of friends and family.
And then it's really comfortable. There are rules in prison throughout the prison, throughout departments of correction, but a lot of rules are not enforced in Angola because of the time guys.
They know you in there.
Right. Yeah. But other places where guys doing 5-6 years, everything is enforced. So it's real tighter there. Yeah. So you're really making a sacrifice when you leave Angola.
You really are going to be a missionary, dude. Yeah.
And so, man, I made a sacrifice and I went to Cottonport, Louisiana, and served at Avoyas Correctional Center.
So like all this time that you're in Angola, man, you're in Cottonport. I mean, obviously like God's grace is on you, but obviously the things around you ain't pretty, man. It's still prison.
Yes,
you know?
It's still prison. Families are still hurting. I can remember there was a time where people when my mother used to come visit me, a lot of people used to mistake her for my sister. But time went to pass and mom was getting old. Yeah. And man, she can't visit as much as she did. That start to slack up, family start to back away, you know, and
that's hard.
Yeah, it's very hard. And so here it is. I go on this missionary journey. My first day there, this insane. My first day there, I get off the bus, the chaplain see me, while they processing me and say, look, when you get your things in the dorm, look, come to the chapel.
Mm-hmm.
I said, yes, sir. I got my things in the dorm, went to the chapel. They had a service that night, and the inmate pastor was discharged. Just happened to be discharged that day at 12:01 the next morning.
Yeah.
And so they were celebrating him, they called, and he told me to come sit in the pulpit up there, and they were celebrating him, and then he said, well, Pastor John is gone. He said, I want y'all to meet y'all new pastor, Pastor Ronald Olivier. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Are you serious, man?
Yeah, straight to the top.
So I'm like, man, I'm not gonna make a scene. I'm gonna wait to talk to him in private. So because the church was established, they had a ministerial staff. They got people on their staff that was looking to be next.
Yeah.
So
you came in.
They got deacons, they got 2 choirs, they got ushers. I'm talking about the structure of the church is there. And I just come from off the bus that day. And so when we get in the office, I say, Chaplain, let me talk to you. He said, what's up? I said, man, I just come here to help, man. I just want to assist, man. Look, just serve. I'm not trying to,
Yeah.
He said, you really want to help? I said, yes, sir. I said, that's all I come to do, man. I just want to help, man. He said, well, you the pastor. I said, man, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And so for about 3.5 years,
you led this church.
I served as the pastor there and the chaplain assistant.
Wow.
And man, God did some amazing things, man. And that helped grow me in really leadership. God was pushing me out there because I'm the type of person, look,
I
love the background.
Yeah.
I'm good coming off the bench. I ain't got to be on the start. I ain't got to start.
He put you up front, bro. Yeah.
And it seemed like the more I push myself and try to hide in the background, the more he just pushed me out there.
When you think about that verse, bro, God says, to become the greatest in my kingdom, you must be the least.
Yeah,
you humble yourself, I will exalt you. And we say all them verses because they sound good and they feel good. Yet usually we still trying to put ourselves up front and center, But when you really do it that way, to hear how God just did that in your life, man, that's awesome. Yeah, so you pastored this church.
Yes. Yeah.
Straight off the
bus, man.
Yeah.
Literally. And I kind of liken it to the story of David, who wasn't even considered.
Yeah, he was just in the sheep pen.
He in the sheep pen.
Yeah. and they just rolled you in and anointed
I'm like, man, what's going on,
So did you have, coming into that, man, you got to be like almost insecure, not insecure, but like, can I do this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And so what it helped me do is turn more to God, to really depend on. I know I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
That wasn't the question in my mind. Look, if this gonna happen, God, you gonna have to show up.
Yeah.
If you don't show up, this church in trouble. And so, man, and so the ministerial staff, they grumbling now. So they didn't turn against me. So I got to deal with that.
On top of just pastoring people.
And God telling me to love them.
Yeah.
Just love them.
Wow.
Just love them. I'm like, man, I'm talking about they fighting me on every end.
Yeah, they punching me in the face. Go love them.
Love them. And there was and so I picked some other guys also to be on the staff that I thought was really ready and amazing. I used to go in a vestry part, and they had a closet where I actually used to pray in the closet. That's where I spend a lot of time at.
Yeah, in that prayer closet.
Oh man, that was my spot there.
Yeah.
And I put that worship music on and be there. And this particular day I was there, I never forget. I'm in there, I'm worshiping, and so I turned the worship ball. God said, turn it off. I turned it off. He said, just listen. And so I'm listening. I'm thinking God about to tell me something. And 3 of the ministers who I picked, they come in the vestry and they having a meeting on me.
And they don't know you right there.
They don't know I'm in the closet. I'm hearing everything so loud and clear. And it just broke my heart, man, because I really love those guys. I want the crime right there. And so I wanted
to put these boys on.
Right. And so I wanted to just bust out there and just, God say, look, this keep still, stay still. Stay still. And still telling me to love them. To this day, they never knew I was in that closet.
Really? You still ain't say nothing?
He told me not to tell him.
I couldn't keep that secret, bro.
He told me not to even tell him. And man, found out who it really was. It was just one who was influencing the other ones. Yeah. You know, and man, God dealt with that situation. But man, it was an amazing journey there. I can remember God led me to have this prayer meeting. You know, not many people show up for a prayer meeting. And so I put up flyers all in the dorms for prayer because a lot of guys there was doing not as longer sentences as people in Angola, but they were still long, you know. Yeah.
They just trying to joust and get out.
Right. And these men of God who God done changed their life. You know? They couldn't get back in court. They barred out of court. So they had to do the remaining of their sentence. And so, man, and me and my assistant pastor who came from Angola. Was
all these Angola boys coming over here taking over.
Look, we the only two in the prison with life sentences.
Wow. And y'all are the pastors.
Right. and so the Secretary of Corrections had to sign a waiver to allow us to be there.
Yeah.
And so we got life sentences, got guys with other sentences and barred out of court. So God led me to do this prayer meeting. I put on the flyers, look, you know, you may be barred out of court, but there's another court. Those courts. You know, there's another judge that's gonna hear your case. Yeah. Get all your legal work, your transcript, bring it to the chapel. We're gonna put it on it. We're gonna put it on the altar.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Man, the response was amazing. Hundreds of guys came. Yeah. And we had so much paperwork on the altar.
Wow.
Man, I'm telling you, bro.
You got to see God move.
Man.
Yeah.
See, just imagine, it take a lot of faith for that. Guys have to dig up their legal work, and they passing up the law library and bringing it to the chapter.
Yeah.
It don't make sense.
Yeah.
Man, God honored that, man. His presence coming there. Oh, man, it was amazing. We had scriptures posted all the way around on the walls where people can walk and pray the word and quote the word and, you know, believe God.
Dude, that's got to be such an empowering experience for you to see God using you in that way.
Yes.
And using pastoring this church, things are actually going. God's actually moving, you know. Right. That's got to blow your mind.
Mind blowing, because I had my paperwork there too now.
I forgot about that.
Look, I had my rap sheet there. Yeah. You know, that's the master prison record. It's like your title deeds to your sentence. This solidifies, okay, here you have a life sentence. Yeah. And I brought that before God. Man, look at this. This is what they saying, Lord. What are you saying?
Wow.
You know?
Yeah. That's powerful.
Yeah, the one who did this, you know, he dead.
That's powerful.
You know, why I gotta do this sentence for him?
Yeah.
You know? That's not me.
Yeah.
And so, man, I brought that before God. I used to talk to that rap sheet.
Wow.
You know, you can't hold me.
Yeah.
I can't die here. I will not die here.
Yeah. There's just them prophetic words.
To have that
conversation over that thing.
With that.
Yeah.
Because it was talking to me.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so I had to talk back to it.
Wow.
And man, amazingly, right after that service, so many guys was going home. And so when you see somebody going home, they have a little orange bag, they put their stuff in, and they got to pass the chapel to go home.
Yeah.
And so they were stopping in the chapel. Man, there, one guy came in the chapel on his way home. He said, man, I was in that service.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He said, I didn't have anything in court. I don't even know how I got in court. He said, I don't even know how I'm going home.
They
calling me right now to release me.
Yeah.
And so, man, I rejoice with all those guys.
That's got to be so hard for you, though, still knowing that you've got this sentence.
Yeah, but I had a revelation of this, that these guys are part of the body of Christ. I'm a part of the body of Christ.
Yeah.
So if the foot going home and I'm the own,
You got to follow at some point.
I'm coming.
Wow. That's good. That preaches
And so
right
that
there.
helped me rejoice with them because I felt like a part of me was going on.
Yeah.
You know?
That's good.
And man, and sure enough, later it happened. You know?
So originally, it was a case that ended up opening the doors for you. They found that basically what they sentenced you with was illegal to sentence you against your constitutional rights. Right.
And so in 2012 now, fast forward, I'm back at Angola now. I did about 3.5 years as a missionary, as a pastor. So I'm back in Angola, and this new law happens. Miller versus Alabama, United States Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional to give a juvenile a mandatory life sentence.
Wow.
It said it violated our 8th Amendment, which was cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah.
And that a juvenile is more likely to be rehabilitated than an adult because they had all the signs of the brain, the frontal lobe of the brain is not fully developed in the juvenile.
Yeah.
And it's the part of the brain that helps you to appreciate risk and consequences.
For males, it's 25.
Right.
Before that sucker's done developing.
Right. Exactly.
You're basically certifiably insane until 25.
Right. And so I always thought it kind of strange that, okay, they can give me a life sentence for a crime I committed when I was 16 and charged me as an adult. But when I got to Angola, there was a sign by the canteen that said that you can't buy cigarettes under the age of 18.
Yeah.
You know, so I can't buy cigarettes.
Yeah.
But I can get a life sentence.
I can get a life sentence. Y'all killing me anyway.
Right. And it's so many laws that had conflict with that. You know, you can't even get married without the consent of your parents.
Yeah.
You know, at 16. You can't go in the army or serve in the military.
You can't make any life decision.
Right.
Because they know you're going to be a different person by the time you turn a certain age.
Right,
you know?
Exactly. And so, man, that case came. I'll never forget. I was waiting for the ruling of it.
Y'all were like watching it.
Oh, yes.
Y'all in the law library, knowing what's going on.
Yeah, and we watching TV, CNN. We know the announcement about to come down of the ruling. And they said, man, I danced so much. I was second line. I cut a few steps.
Yeah.
And so, but amazingly, that was 2012. Louisiana didn't want to adhere to the United States Supreme Court. Yeah. And so they came down with a ruling in the Louisiana Supreme Court saying that Miller versus Alabama is not retroactive.
Yeah,
which meant
they can't make up for people that have already done this.
Right, and so which means it goes from 2012 forward. It's not going to go backwards.
Yeah,
and which we knew it was going to go backwards because of the language. They didn't actually say it in Miller versus Alabama, but they implied it.
Yeah.
You know, and so they try to capitalize on that. So a lot of people was discouraged, man. I was really encouraged, and I was encouraging others because it was like 300 something guys who was in the prison that are affected. Yeah. And so a lot of lawyers would come talk to us. It was like, man, sorry, it might take another 6-7 years before the United States Supreme Court even hear another case like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man. And so again, I take it to God. You know? So that had been a habit of mine. Anything going on, I'm going in the presence of God. I just got to go in the presence of God. Lay it down
before him.
And he gave me the assurance that I was going to be all right.
Yeah.
And about 3 or 4 months later, United States Supreme Court accepted a case.
Yeah.
Concerning retroactivity.
Really?
And it was a case of a friend of mine named George Toker. And I never forget, George Toker was in prison for over 30 years for killing his best friend. And he always had been fighting his innocence, said he never did it. He had the Innocent Project behind him and been fighting that. And so even the victim family testified on his behalf saying that George would have killed her son, she said. George would have turned the gun on himself and killed himself because they was inseparable.
This kind of guy he was.
That's how close they were. She was like, that's impossible for him, you know, but they still convicted him. He spent 30 years there. over 30 years. And so now the state realized that this case is in the United States Supreme Court that's going to affect 300 something other people, really thousands across the United States.
Yeah.
And so the state comes with him with a deal now.
Yeah, they want to let him out.
Yeah, want him to plead guilty to a lesser offense, which was manslaughter, and it carried the maximum sentence that it carried was 21 years when the time he was.
So he got time served.
So he'll get time credit served and he'll go straight home.
But they still look pretty. They look like they never had no mistakes.
Right. Yeah. But their strategy was this. They know if he take that deal, that withdraws his case from the United States Supreme Court.
Which they won't even see it to make it retroactive.
Right.
Yeah. That's wild, man.
And so George, I never forget, he came to see me. We found a little area to talk in the education building, a little classroom, and he telling me this pressure that's on him. You know, here it is. He want to help everybody.
Yeah.
But he got this deal. He want to go home.
Yeah.
You know, and then his mother pressuring him. His family
just
pressuring him.
Home.
Yeah, because his mother's sick. He don't know if he gonna make it home to you know, before she passed.
Yeah.
You know, and so he like, man, I don't know what to do. I said, come on, man, let's pray. I prayed for George, prayed with him, and I told him this after. I said, man, listen. I said, you have to do what you think is best.
Yeah.
You know. And he went to like, man, but what about everybody? I said, listen, I want you to understand this here for me personally. I can't speak for everybody else, but me. I said, George, my life is not in your hands.
Yeah, even though you got skin in the game on the paper.
Right.
Yeah.
I said, man, my life in God's hands, man.
Yeah.
George, take the deal. They withdraw the case.
Really?
George, go home. So there's the talk again, 6-7 years before another case. Yeah. That was a miracle.
And you played a part in it.
Yeah. So everybody mad at George. They won't kill George.
No, for sure.
And when it was 2016, they ruled it retroactive.
Wow.
Yeah. And later I got parole eligibility. I go to court to be resentenced. So I'm challenging the sentence all through this process. Because now, according to the United States Supreme Court, my sentence is illegal.
Yeah.
So I filed a motion to correct an illegal sentence. And I'm going back and forth to court. And so I got to have this hearing. And when I finally go to court, supposed to be having a hearing that day, I noticed when I go into court and sit on the front row, there's a lady right across the aisle from me, just staring at me.
Yeah.
She looked familiar. I'm not really catching where I know her from.
But she looking like she knows you.
Yeah, and she looking, her look is not pleasant. She's like glaring at me. And I'm like, man, where I know this lady from? And I don't want to just stare back at her because I'm looking scary I'm handcuffed and shackled.
Yeah.
You know, got the orange jumpsuit on. And so I'm like, man, so I'm looking out my peripheral and I can see her still.
You can feel it.
Yeah. And so my lawyers come over, they frantic and panicking, like, man, we got a problem, blah, blah. I said, what's going on? They say the victim family showed up. The guy who you killed, sister is here.
Wow.
And then it hit me. I said, man. I said, that's not his sister. I said, that's his mother.
Wow.
I remembered her face. Because I prayed, when I developed and got a prayer life, man, I prayed for this lady more than I prayed for anybody. Because I remembered her face so vividly on the stand, crying, talking about her son.
When y'all originally in court.
Right, when we was originally in court.
And you carried that with you.
Yeah, and man, I prayed for this lady so much, and I always had a desire to just have this dialogue with her, just ask her to forgive me. You know? And I couldn't remember how the judge looked. I definitely couldn't remember how the DA looked. I didn't even remember how my lawyer looked. Yeah. But her face was branded in my mind. Wow. I never forgot her face. And so I told my lawyers, I said, man, see if I can talk to her. I said, man, I'd like to have a dialogue. Because this is higher than me getting out. This was my greatest desire. This was bigger than me getting out.
Yeah, to know you've been forgiven.
Yeah, just to talk to this lady. Even if she don't forgive me, I was prepared for that. I just want to let her know
do what you're called
how
to
I
do.
felt.
Yeah, for sure.
Know? And where I was.
Yeah.
And so here it is. They go over there. They ask the DA. The DA go ask her. They come back with the answer, and she said she didn't want to talk to me, and that everything she was gonna say, she was gonna say it on the stand. I was like, wow. And so just so happened that they set my court date back one more month.
Yeah. You went back and talked to that, huh?
Man, that gave me a month to pray. Oh, man, I prayed.
Can I get her to write that on a piece of paper so I can go talk to it and put it on the altar?
Man, I prayed so much through that month for her. And when we went back to court, amazingly, she requested that I speak to her.
Wow.
Man, nothing but God.
Yeah.
And so they bring her over there behind me, the bench behind me, the DA bring her. He's sitting next to her. And I turn around and begin to talk to her. The hardest conversation I have ever had in my life.
Yeah. I struggle whenever I ate my wife's snack and have to go tell her. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't imagine, man. Especially after all these years, you carrying this thing, you ready to, and God's freed you of so much.
Yes.
You're like, this is that peace.
Yeah. And so I'm like, man, so I turn around, I look at her, she's looking at me. Very emotional conversation. She's crying, I'm crying. And I broke the silence. I told her, I said, ma'am, I said, I take full responsibility for the death of your son.
Wow.
And before that, her arms were folded. When I said that, she took a deep breath, and then she released it. She released her arms.
Wow.
And she leaned toward me.
Yeah.
You know, it was like that.
Which that in itself
was
gotta be like.
It was almost like she was bracing herself for some story that I was gonna come up with. You know, man, such and such did it. I didn't do it. That's what's common in the court.
Yeah, for sure.
Even the DA was baffled about what I said. He even said it later. He never heard that in the court. Nobody take responsibility.
Them dudes go to the grave holding on to it. I ain't did nothing.
Yeah. And so, man, I took responsibility of it. And I said, I have absolutely no excuse for trying to give you or what have you. I said, I'm just asking that you forgive me, that somehow you can find in your heart to forgive me.
Wow.
You know. And she said, I don't hate you.
Wow.
She said, and I forgive you.
Wow.
And she went on to say, man, I believe you deserve a second chance.
Yeah.
She even told me that. She said, I lost my son. She said, it makes no sense for your mother to lose her son.
Yeah.
And man, it broke something in me that I didn't even know I was holding. And even though I was handcuffed and shackled, I felt that come off.
Yeah.
Oh man, I was free. It didn't even matter the proceedings of the courts after that.
You know, that's all you wanted.
It didn't even matter. Yeah. You know? And I was like, it brought me to another level of freedom that I didn't never experience. And man, it was amazing. So she got on stand and echoed
the same thing
and put it on record.
Wow.
And man, they re-sentenced me and gave me parole eligibility. Everybody was clapping. I was the last case there, so I had a lot of family support who was there. So they was leaving, going out the courtroom. Everybody was leaving. I'll never forget, my little niece was like the last one tagging along, and the judge said, Mr. Olivier, look, you can visit with your family a while.
Wow.
So I called my little niece, so she got everybody to come back in. Everybody wanted to coming back in. The lady came back in. She pushed past my family to get to me first.
What'd she tell you?
And she told me, she said, I'm so happy for you.
Wow.
She said, I'm happy for you. She said, just promise me one thing. I said, ma'am, anything. She said, just don't pick up that gun again. I said, ma'am, you never have to worry about that.
Man, that's like the picture of the difference between mercy and grace. Mercy is I forgive you. Grace is I'm so happy for you.
Yes.
That's a picture of the grace of Jesus, man.
It was amazing. And so later, in 2018, November the 8th, I go on
Get your parole hearing.
board,
Yeah.
you know, go on a hearing, and it was amazing. They don't normally do it live, you know, come to Angola. It's always on the screen. This particular time they there.
Really?
Just so happened. I'm telling you, God is setting this whole thing up. And I had so much family support when they came in there. They had areas where they sit the victims down at, victim family. They told my family to go over there. We filled that, and it still was standing up. And I never forget waiting to go in there. I was so nervous. I'm talking about I'm terrified. It's my life on the line.
Yeah,
there,
for sure.
You know? And I never forget when my feet crossed the threshold of the parole board, immediately I felt the presence of God.
Wow.
All the fear go.
Yeah.
I'm talking about nothing but confidence.
Yeah, you going
faith,
home.
I'm talking about, man, it just was amazing. So all my lawyers was worried about this one board member who literally drills you. He has a degree in library science, so he loved to read. He read everything about you several times and make notes to drill you and literally like bring you back to court again. You know, you're on trial again. So everybody was concerned about him. And he the one had my case. And so he opened it up, Mr. Olivier. He said, I read everything about you several times. He said, I read the portfolio you presented several times. He said, I never saw anything like it. It was about the size of a little phone book.
Yeah.
And he said, at this time, I have no questions.
Wow.
I'm talking about God shut his mouth.
Yeah.
And amazing. And before you know it, they was joking and laughing. And,
you shut the mouth of lions, the word says, man.
And I had a unanimous decision.
Wow.
And I was released November the 30th.
Wow.
2018.
Yeah. Going home. What was that like, bro?
Man, that was amazing. I'll never forget after I got my stuff. Well, I know I was leaving on the 18th about 3 days prior to it, so it was difficult for me to sleep and eat. My appetite shut down, so I just fasted.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm about to get some real food.
Yeah. And so by fate, months prior to that, I was giving stuff away. Yeah. You know, God told me, lighten your load.
On faith, yeah.
I'm talking about, I heard him say, lighten your load. And I went to getting rid of stuff. You know, and so, man, so all my stuff was pretty much packed.
Yeah.
You know.
That's what's up.
And so, man, I'll never forget there's a catwalk you have to go down through to get to the hospital where they discharge you from the hospital. Man, I got to the catwalk. I took off running. I'm talking about I took off running. Full speed. Yeah. It felt surreal, man. I felt like I was dreaming.
Were you at Angola? This was all at Angola?
This was at Angola.
Who was there to meet you?
And so I went into the Louisiana Parole Project. They're the ones who represent me. So they pick you up at the gate.
For reentry stuff.
Yeah. And also my fiance was there, which is my wife now.
Yeah.
She was at the gate.
Yeah.
And so it was on a Friday. And what I didn't know is that once you go to their program, they let you go home on a Friday. You know, so I was going there just to get processed in and then leave.
Yeah.
You know, and so my fiance had this whole weekend set up.
Planned,
Oh man, it just was amazing, man. It was amazing, man.
Wow. Man, I couldn't imagine.
Yes.
Bro, that's a lot, man.
Yes, sir.
27 summers, bro.
27 summers, man.
That's a long time, bro.
Man.
And to see the man that God's built you into.
And man, God brought me through so much. I saw so much in the prison.
And the way you talk about it, bro, is you don't talk about it like it's prison.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about it because you keep your eyes on what God's doing.
And so in the midst of all of that was going on, man, it was him.
Yeah.
He's the star of this story. You know, I just happened to be a co-star part of it. Man, it was always him.
So now you spent the past 6 years? You're working with the Parole Project now.
Look, amazingly, before I got there, because the chaplain who was at Cottonport, who I did ministry with, he was the pastor and still is the pastor of a church, and then ended up being the mayor of Simsport.
Wow.
You know, and he's in his second term right now.
Yeah.
But he the one came and spoke on my behalf.
Yeah.
And Chaplain Rentz, Jim Rentz, he spoke on my behalf. I worked with him for years.
I remember him telling me about you when you were still in.
Oh man, this was my man.
Yeah.
And so I was actually supposed to go to his house. I was discharged into his house. He had fill out the resident plan for me where I can come to his house. And so
you hear Miss Esther.
Yeah. And so so I'm going to their house. So in the middle of it, they told me, they said, I can't go to his house because he was official there. And so
conflict of interest.
Right. And so the mayor stepped up, said, look, I got a place for him and a job for him.
You became a chaplain, right?
Yeah. You know, and so by this time he's not a chaplain anymore. Yeah. Because he's the mayor and he's still pastoring the church. He said, man, I got a place for him to stay in 2 jobs. So I came home, I was the youth pastor at his church, and I worked for the town of Simsport, and he gave me a 3-bedroom home, man.
Yeah. Man, you got key to the city, huh?
Man, I'm telling you, bro. And it was amazing. The place empty, but every weekend somebody was coming with a trailer filling it up. Jim Rentz and Esther. Yeah. They come like, how y'all get all this stuff in there? Who packed this? Don't worry about it. Get it out.
So Esther make you clothes, whatever she need to do.
Man, I end up with like 4 bedroom sets. I was giving stuff away. Yeah. 3 living room sets. Yeah. You know, I'm talking I was in the overflow.
They were so cool to think about, man. I think about, you know, the story of Joseph and, you know, 30 years and this and that. And, you know, really, I remember you coming back and telling me about, you know, from here you go on to work to serve other people in similar situations, and you're just being faithful still. And then, man, when you went and spoke at, was it Brooklyn Tabernacle? You went and spoke at. Yeah. And this lady all of a sudden is like, tell us what happened there, man.
And so let me bag up right here. Yeah. Later from that job, I get a call from the former warden, Burl Kane, who's the commissioner over Mississippi Departments of Correction. So he's like into the correctional
like the actual,
right, the ones who were all the prisons. Yeah. You know. And he called me to be a chaplain at Mississippi State Penitentiary. And to not only the chaplain, director of chaplaincy. Wow. And I took that job and, man, served people in that capacity for like 2.5 years. And then later came here to Baton Rouge, which was a year ago. Yeah. You know, it was last April I came here and joined the Louisiana Parole Project. And man, helping people to go through the transition like somebody helped me. Amazing job. And so here it is. I'm even prior to that. I'm in Brooklyn. This is about my 3rd time. I'm sharing my story. You know, and I come off the stage, you know, the security usually come meet me trying to get me to the pastor's office, but I talk to everybody who's in line. They got a whole line of people hugging me, some taking pictures with me, some want me to pray with them. And so there's this lady waiting in the shadows.
I might get you to pray over a couple of things before you leave. You be praying over people's paperwork. Yeah.
And so here it is, this lady waiting in the shadows. She waited last on purpose. Yeah. So she comes up, she says, she had tears in her eyes. She said, man, you have a real powerful story. She said, I was here the first time you shared your story. He said, but I wasn't in position. Yeah. She said, 2 weeks ago, I became the chief executive editor of Nelson Book Publishing Company. Wow. She said, you gotta do a book. Yeah. Now, why is this? Well, she didn't know I was in Pastor Simler's office the day before when I flew in. And I told Pastor, I said, man, Pastor, I need some help, man. He said, what you need? What you need, Ryan? What you need help with? I said, I got a book in me.
Yeah.
I gotta get out.
Yeah.
And she come the next day.
Wow.
I'm telling you, God. And there we go at it, 27 summers.
And God has just broke things loose with it, bro.
Yes.
You telling me I feel almost like, I've been trying to get you here. And you're like, well, I got to go do 700 Club. They got to do hair and makeup and all this. I'm like, man, Ronald blowing up. He ain't coming to do this little podcast in my house. But man, just to see where God brought you from, bro, it's mind blowing, man.
Yes,
this
sir.
is just the beginning of it, bro.
Yes,
I believe
sir.
He's got a calling on your life
sir.
like none other.
Yes, sir.
I believe so many men are going to feel that freedom you felt in that holding cell because of your story, because of your faithfulness,
Yes,
man.
sir.
So I'm just excited to get to watch.
You just made me remember this. When I first went to Healing Place Church, when I had the life sentence, I'm sitting on the front row, and Jim Simler shows this video of me, and and I pop up on those 3 big screens, and I'm baffled. I'm like, man, Lord, I said this. I say, Lord, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm like amazed. I say, what are you doing? And he said this here. I'll never forget. I heard it so clear. He said, you haven't seen anything.
Wow. Yeah. That's
seen anything yet. And every so often I still hear that because I'm like, man, Lord, if you do nothing else, man, you done went over and behind,
Yeah.
But it continues to come, man. The blessings are like they're coming in waves. Before I can recover from one splash,
You getting hit again.
here come another splash.
Yeah.
And he just steady, man, just doing this thing, man.
Bro, you bless me, man. This is just blessing me like beyond put all the podcasts aside, whatever, all this just sitting down with you, bro, hearing your story and then seeing the still connection to it. I think about even the Israelites and they would forget about what God did, but you could still tell it's right here, bro. It's in your throat.
Yes,
and we got to keep it right there,
Yes,
man.
sir. Yes,
He'll
sir.
continue to work through you and in you, bro.
Yeah, I see the same thing with you, man. Your story blessed me every time. I done heard it several times, and man, it blessed me every time.
Yeah.
Man.
You gotta be faithful with what God's given us, bro.
Yes,
We're
sir.
gonna do this thing.
Yes, sir.
Bro, thanks for coming on, man. We're gonna wrap this thing up. 27 Summers, anywhere that you can find a book, it is there.
Yes.
If you want, holler at me. I'll get you a copy, but I believe this thing's gonna bless a lot of people, man. So,
sir.
bro, thanks for coming on.
Yes, sir.
I feel like I just want to give you a hug or something, man.
Yes.
But like we always say on this thing, life can be tough, but God is still so good.
God is so good. Yes, he is.
That's awesome, man.